What's going on, everybody? We're back with a Friday edition, a happy hour edition. Cheers of Pickin' Six. Connor and I are back once again. I feel like at this point I introduce myself every time. I'm Tyler. This is Connor. This is Pickin' Six. We're giving out our best college football and NFL picks for the weekend. Connor, how you feeling? How was the week? I put in the description that we went 4-4. But apparently, we actually went 4-3-1 because I forgot the LSU pushed. I'll take it.
Yeah, it was a push. Puts us at back-to-back net positive weeks on the unit count, which, given a little bit of turmoil recently, both in the college football world and the NFL world, I think is pretty good standing, and I think we have another pretty good slate ahead of us.
Yeah, man. Got a good one here. This is the last week before wrap. We're coming down to like the nitty gritty here. Seasons are won and lost here. The college playoff is for the committee is forming. NFL teams are already like knocking themselves out of the playoffs or making pushes towards the playoffs here late. There's still a long way to go there, but I'm excited. Um, I got a good feeling. Let's just jump right into this thing. Um, Going down to the Big 12, we got TCU -2.5 against Baylor over under 57. TCU, the number 4 team in the college playoff rankings, kind of seems like they have to go undefeated to make the playoff. And another tough test here with Baylor down in Waco, Texas, at Baylor. How do you feel about this one, Connor?
This one's a little bit interesting for me personally, based on a lot of, or some of the recent plays, and I would say the last probably 4 weeks of college football, because I got burnt. Baylor burnt me probably 4 or 5 weeks ago now. In the last couple of weeks, been riding TCU. I think they're what 8-2 against the spread on the season. Or
Yes. No, 8-1-1.
8-1-1.
And Baylor
And
6-4
rattled
ATS.
off 11 straight wins, dating back to last season. But for me, there's a couple things like I'm kind of thinking here. TCU's averaging 40.5 points per game, throwing for 272.5 yards per game, rushing for 214. Max Duggan completed 66% of his passes for 124 yards and 1 touchdown in the win over the Longhorns. All things considered, I think this is pretty solid with their number 1 wide receiver. Probably a little banged up going into that game, but just goes to show they have a lot of depth in the wide receiver room. And then combined with Keandre Miller, who had 21 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown, I think they have a pretty high-powered offense combined with a defense that's been playing pretty well across the board this season, giving up 25.2 points, 10 in their last game. They'll need a similar sort of effort here against Baylor in order to get the job done. And I think with pretty much playoff hopes in mind, they'll have to get the job done. And if they'll be able to cover this field goal spread, get the job done here. Really, I expect nothing less. They have, for some of these guys, it'll be the biggest stage of their football careers. So with that in mind, I think they'll be able to go down to Waco and get this thing done.
Yeah, I like this number at a less than a field goal here, just because Baylor's no pushover. Max Duggan is a guy. He's a dog. He is brought life to this TCU Horned Frogs team, who we really haven't seen be relevant in honestly a couple years, or maybe early 2010s if I had to really think about it. But yeah, I think that the TCU has a real chance to solidify the spot here in playoff contention. I mean, you go undefeated, the committee has no choice but to let you in. You know what I mean? If you at this point, TCU is in control of their own destiny. You know what I mean? They don't have to put it in the hands of other teams yet. So staying undefeated is huge. Obviously, 8-1-1 ATS on the season so far, 10-0 straight up. In the last 5 matchups, TCU is 4-1 straight up against Baylor, and looks like 3-2 against the spread. Baylor is 3-2 out of their last 5 after getting absolutely stomped on by Kansas State. Baylor was 2.5-point favorites in that game, by the way. As far as on the season, Baylor's 6-4. Excuse me, 3-2 at home against the spread and 3-1 as a dog. TCU Road Warriors 4-0-1 away against the spread, especially traveling down. It's in it. There's a lot of colleges down there in the state of Texas. It could be a lot farther of a road trip, but you're still going to the other team's home turf. The battle of the Christian schools, down in Texas. Love thy neighbor, not all the time, not here. I like the Horned Frogs here and the points. Moving right along. I think we have 4 games and they're all in different conferences this week. You gotta love that. This is just one of our favorite types of matchups right here between me and Connor. We got Minnesota -2.5 against Iowa. Off the jump here, I think that Minnesota actually is a good Big Ten team, relative to their conference. Their running back, Ibrahim, I believe his last name is a dog. I remember watching, unfortunately, his last season was cut short for him due to that Achilles injury. PJ Fleck I really love him as a head coach of the Golden Gophers, man. If he was my head coach, I'd run through a wall for that man. He's nothing but, encouraging and a fantastic. He believes in these boys. He wants to make he wants to take Minnesota football to the top. I think that this less than a field goal number is a perfect spot for Minnesota. I think 32.5 has a lot to do with Iowa and not much to do with the Golden Gophers. Like the Golden Gophers still have, at least they've at least gone over 4 times this season, while Iowa's only gone over 3. It's very interesting. Iowa is 5-0 straight up out of the last 5, and 5-0 against the spread. I think Minnesota and PJ Fleck are due for one here, and this is at Minnesota, so that we're excited about it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that Minnesota is like one of the top Big Ten teams we have this season, but having Morgan under center is going to make things a little bit tougher for this offense, because he's kind of the key to getting this unit going, and especially given his kind of control and cadence to how the run game is being played, and the run game is pretty much how Minnesota gets to scoring the ball. So if they can't run the ball against one of the best defenses in the conference, it's going to make things difficult for them to cover, let alone win this game. Minnesota throwing the ball in winds that could get up to around 16 miles per hour will make things especially difficult. Like, that's not easy. It's going to be like they're playing the football version of paper toss on the iPod.
I love that. That's a good ref.
Like, another thing I kind of look at is, where's the public money on this game? Where? And
56% on the Gophers.
Yeah, so at least like the info I was seeing, 60% were landing on the Gophers, but 90% money lies with Iowa. So I'm tended for like kind of those 2 reasons. I would like Iowa to cover, and I would that 2.5, and I could them at plus 120, pretty solid odds to win outright.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Gophers here, man. It's very rare that you and I disagree, which is completely fine. You know what I mean? I think it's more interesting when we're split here. I'm gonna stick with the Gophers, man, just because of how that team can perform in these situations. I was won the last 5, so Minnesota's got a lot to prove here, and that field goal spread is just enough for me to take it. So yeah, I'm still riding with the Gophers here. But I love what you said about Iowa, man. And then the over under, what do you think? What do you think? 32.5. That's the lowest one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that's one of the lowest totals. I think since, like, I don't know, call it the last 30 years or whenever totals started to be tracked. And like I think there's one similar to that in the NFL this weekend. That's like the lowest ever since points totals were tracked in the NFL. But besides the point.
Yeah, man. It should be interesting. Let's keep it moving. We're going down south. Ole Miss running Rebels and the Arkansas, the Hogs, the Razorbacks. Ole Miss is getting 2 points here, over under 64.5. Lane Kiffin, they had him, like the whole saying, they had him in the first half. They couldn't put Alabama away, let him get right back into it. You can't do that against Nick Saban, literally ever. This game is down in Fayetteville. It's a 7:30 night game. Arkansas is sneaky cold for some reason, so I'm sure the boys will be bundled up. Neither one of these teams very good against the spread, even though Ole Miss is 8-2. It should be very interesting. I think that Arkansas, after having LSU like kind of in their sights and not being able to get it done, is looking for something here. I think that Ole Miss, after almost beating Alabama, is looking to, Ole Miss still, well, no, not anymore. That LSU clinched, but Ole Miss is still, I think in this scenario, a little bit better than Arkansas. Arkansas, I think, has tapered off as far as their offensive production later in the season here. So I like the Rebs -2 here.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. Ole Miss freshman running back Quinshon Judkins
He's a dog,
speed.
by the way. He is so good.
Yeah, he's a monster. Like I was about to spit out his campaign last week: 135 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against the Tide, putting him at a total of 1,171 yards on the ground, 15 touchdowns on 205 carries. Now that's 5.7 yards per rushing attempt. And sophomore quarterback Jackson Dart has been pretty good, damn good in his own right. 2124 rushing yards, 2,124. I said that weird for some reason, but 15 touchdowns. These two stars give them a pretty solid offensive attack here. Very balanced, to say the least. And they're going against an Arkansas team that's lost 5 out of its last 7. They've been held under 30 points in 4 out of the last 5 conference games. So give me the Rebels to cover against a team that hasn't shown a tendency. They could put up points and really hang with this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, man. And funny enough is that Judkins he's an Alabama native, Alabama high school native. I guess Saban didn't want him, so Lane Kiffin said, "Oh, we'll absolutely take him." And 1,100 yards rushing in 12 games is something as a freshman, unreal.
In the SEC, that's impressive.
Yeah, in the SEC as a freshman, yeah, you know what I mean. So I don't think there's much discussion here. I think Ole Miss minus the points, especially at 2, a field goal. I'll take them at a field goal. You're not asking them to put up a touchdown on these guys. It's going to be Arkansas's defense is not spectacular. I think they were hoping to lean on their offense, and that their quarterback, whose name escapes me at the moment, who's very good. Like I said, I think they just tapered off a little bit. But yeah, so I got to run with the Rebs here and Lane Kiffin's play calling, as crazy as it may be. And then we'll take it to the Battle of SoCal. I think this is one of the hottest, one of the most exciting matchups between these two teams that we've had in a while. We got the USC Trojans against UCLA. This is at the Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena, which I believe is UCLA's home stadium, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and what's crazy to me, I mean, now I'd be lying if I said that I was paying super close attention to both of these teams, but for them to have a 76-point 76.5 point over is crazy. I mean, when you look at their game totals and like their matchups, you have UCLA 62-33 last year, USC 43-38, 52-35. It gets up there. So I get it, but a 76.5 pre-flop before the game even starts is actually crazy. How you feel about this one? Both teams are great for the over this season too.
Over.
You like that? 76 points.
Yeah. I mean, for a few reasons, I have some stats to kind of back it up. But I mean, I was looking at a couple of score prediction models, and both teams were around the 45, 50 point threshold each. So I mean, that
Yeah.
kind of smashes that over.
Yeah.
But just kind of digging in a little bit, UCLA has one of the highest scoring offenses in the country. And last week they failed to break 30 points for the first time at all this season, which was surely a shock to both them and any UCLA faithful fans. But I think really the big piece here is that the USC defense is like Swiss cheese. Like, you could run and throw the ball against them, they're going to give up a shit ton of points. The Bruins will have a significant opportunity to bounce back from their low point total this previous week. Quarterback ETR, he started 3 games against the Trojans in his career with a 185.3 passer rating, 70.6 completion percentage, 14 total tutties, 1,240 total yards of offense. So coming off a loss, having this kind of history against them in the past, he's gonna put on against USC. So I really just think overall that we're gonna see a lot of points, and it's gonna be a high scoring affair. So I think certainly this total is high. Probably Vegas put it high to get some people to take the under, but I think that we're going to see a couple of teams putting up 40 here at least.
And do you like a side here? I think that this is, these are two. Well, I think UCLA now that they're an 8-2 team is out of playoff contention, but USC at 9-1, with a couple things bounce their way, they could sneak into the playoff with a couple crazy things happening. Do you have a side here?
Yeah, I think my side would probably be UCLA plus the points, because I think given them coming off of a loss, plus them pretty much having the opportunity to fuck over UFC and
Their rival, yeah.
So their rival, and also pretty much spoiling any slim chance they have at having a big bowl game, let alone a very, very slim shot at at a playoff spot. I think that'll probably be too much for them to pass up here. So
yeah,
mine that, and USC does not have a good defense, so they can't stop their opposing team. Yes, they could put up points, but without being able to stop the other team, you need to do that in order to win games and cover. So I don't know. I think more so it comes from the spoil the other team's season mentality, especially against your rival.
Yeah. They say this is I know that the Clippers and the Lakers play. It's the Battle of Los Angeles. This is the battle. Excuse me. This is the Battle of Southern Cal. You know what I mean? This is the first time, and I feel like a long time, at least in my memory, that these two teams are top 15, top 10 teams going into this one. I think it should be a great one. I agree with you on both fronts. As crazy as it sounds, the over's a possibility.
It was certainly a shock for me seeing.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely possible. It could be, we could maybe hope that if you don't like the 76, maybe hope that there's not a touchdown score right away in the game, and maybe take the live over as if it goes down a little bit, because the offenses are gonna catch up anyway. So that's another thing I would suggest. but I also like UCLA plus the points here. Are you ready to jump into the NFL? You, you, you ready to jump into the NFL, buddy? Is my audio behind? We're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, you were cutting in and out. I think the gist of your picks at the end, but
Yeah. Are you? Can you hear me
everything
now? Are
sounded
we
better
good?
than on my end.
Are we good now? Can you hear me?
Still cutting in and out a little bit,
Okay. Let's.
but I'd imagine that's probably a Wi-Fi issue on my end,
Yeah, let me
as has
see.
been
Hold on.
the case.
This is see we do these live, but we don't get a chance to edit them. Let me see if I can help you out. Let's see. You know what? I think I think we're gonna end the live and we're gonna jump right back on to
I
see if we can
mean,
do these
hold
NFL
on.
picks. Okay, you hear me?
Yeah, now you're coming through clearly.
Okay, I was gonna say I was happy to jump it into a two-parter. I'm happy to call an audible here. You know, am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. So what I was gonna ask is, are you ready to jump into the NFL?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay. Now that you can hear me, listen, boys and girls out there, we don't make, we're not making any money off this stuff yet, so we don't have, wonderful producers to keep everything nice and neat here. So some things happen. All right, let's get it. Bills minus 7.5 against the Browns, over under 49.5. This game is in Detroit at Ford Field because there is about 6 feet of snow headed for Buffalo. I think already 3 feet on the ground.
That's crazy. I mean, Governor of New York put out like state of emergency and get effective yesterday morning, which is crazy. But I don't know. For me, I don't really like a side in this game. I don't know what to make of it, being that it's a neutral site game. Although I would give kind of the edge to the Browns just based on proximity to Detroit, but kind of a couple things that are a little bit iffy for me. I feel like Stephon Diggs is kind of his production, or just maybe it's more so presence in the last couple of weeks, felt a little bit down for me. Josh Allen kind of showed a few signs of the elbow injury that he sustained now 2 weeks ago, but also the Bills have not covered recently. So kind
Yeah.
of my lean in this game would be Browns. I think Nick Chubb's going to give him problems, but like just want to lay some things out there. I think this is a game that I'll probably I'll hold off on betting at least for now. Maybe look for some props on like the Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb fronts. Maybe
Yeah,
a
especially
little touchdown parlay, but
yeah, especially in that dome where they're not going to be running in like 5 feet of snow. And I know that a lot of people are like complaining about like oh, I remember I know you remember the Detroit and Philadelphia game where they were playing in the snow. This is different, and it's like it's not because of the conditions in the stadium. It's just that nobody, including the players, staff, or anybody, would be able to get to the field.
right.
That's the issue. It's not a matter of like them not wanting to play the game, not wanting people in the stadium, just that nobody's going to be able to get there to participate in the game. So that's the whole point. I agree. I'm leaning because you have the hook here. I like it. Browns. I like to lean the Browns here plus the points in a dome. I think the ball is going to be flying. The boys are going to be out and running. I think it's going to be nice. I think it could be honestly a higher scoring game. 49.5 point total here. Like I said, I think I might lean on some props, but I am leaning Browns here. But like I said, I want to wait and see. This is a game that you suggested. I'm very curious what you think. Eagles -7 against Indianapolis Colts. I believe this is in Indianapolis. Over under 45 and a half. I want to. I mean, I think the obvious answer is Eagles. But are you taking the Colts to cover, or you think the Eagles are going to outright win? Just stomp on them here.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting like things going through my mind, kind of why I suggested this game. So, as I've said, like I know a bunch of people who are like Eagles fans, and I kept saying, yeah, haven't played anybody yet, and took a loss this past week. But then can you spin that and say, okay, they're going to come back, and then have a nice bounce back win, and really curb stomp the Colts, who have been pretty bad all season. But then I kind of said to myself, let's think about this for a second. You have new head coach, 13-year veteran with the Colts. Jeff Saturday got his first win. The
Electric.
team seems to be absolutely rejuvenated. Jonathan Taylor looks like himself from last season. And then you combine that with a very bad rush defense of the Philadelphia Eagles. So like that, like their front seven's a bit banged up. So I think this is going to be a Jonathan Taylor game.
Love that. He's on my
And
fantasy team.
yeah, I think you got to look at this for the over on his rushing yards. I think depending on where you get it at, I think around like 85 and a half. I think that over is looking pretty solid. Um, and then you have especially like the Colts still have a good offensive line, so I think with the Eagles' difficulty to really stop the rush, like it's Jonathan Taylor versus the world here. I think the Colts have a good chance of covering. The Eagles really haven't covered as of late, especially with the loss last week. So I think the Indianapolis team kind of riding high with their new coach, new sense of life on the season, not necessarily playing, but really playing to kind of spoil this Eagles season and really put a damper on like the way they started out undefeated this season.
Yeah, man. Dude, Jeff Saturday being the new head coach of the Colts is absolutely electric. Um, I think one of the reasons that Philly hasn't covered is because of the massive spreads they've been handed. They've had 11 and a half, 14 and 11 and a half, 7-point spreads. They did cover 11 and a half against the Steelers, but it still is, they've been handed these massive spreads. I think that it's not last week. I mean, the Monday night game wasn't as shocking as a lot of people make it out to be. You know, Going undefeated in the NFL there's a reason that the last team to do it is the 72 Dolphins, and it hasn't been done since. It's not expected or guaranteed, and it also means that they lost one game. To me, that's not the end of the world. I think that Washington is very good. I think that they're stupid if they don't keep starting Taylor Heineke. I think he's proven every reason why he deserves to be the starter. I don't care how much you paid Carson Wentz. If you want to win football games and have a team that obviously very much rallies around a quarterback, you keep Taylor Heineke in. Unrelated to this game, yeah, I agree. I think that JT is back finally because he was my first overall pick. I was the first pick in my fantasy draft. He's on my team, so finally, I think that it shocks me that people were questioning Jeff Saturday being the head coach here. I know that former players being head coach doesn't always work out, but he gets it. He was a part of the winning seasons of the Indianapolis Colts. He won a Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts. He knows what it means to wear the horseshoe and get it done. So I might not necessarily think that the Colts will win here, but 7 points is a good number for them. So I'm going to take them plus the points here. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to win outright, but I think it's going to be a close one. And the
Yeah,
Colts defense is nothing to sneeze at either. The Colts defense is solid year in and year out.
They're solid, and I think given like the new man at the helm, like he provides like a very different perspective than a lot of NFL head coaches have. Like they have a lot of experience on the sidelines,
Yeah,
but that's totally different, and like they command a different level of respect than someone of the ilk of Jeff Saturday will command. Like he'll be able to kind of like really like bond and kind of like understand them. Like he understands the mindset of the players in a much different way. Like he's been, as you said, on some really fantastic teams, and he's been on some other teams that haven't been so great. So he understands what the players are going through. He seems like a true motivator of men, which I think in a lot of these situations can really like point your team in one direction or the other, and in some cases dictate the outcome of games here, especially betting outcomes as far as
yeah,
we're
man.
concerned.
I think this is more like a field goal spread. At least if we're talking realistically now that Jeff Saturday's the head coach, I just think it's going to be a lot closer. And Matt Ryan at least doesn't look old now. I just feel like Frank Reich, obviously he was the offensive coordinator in the Eagles Super Bowl win, but some people are better off coordinators than head coaches. Like you said, motivator of men, and you have to be able to, like I said, Jeff Saturday put the horseshoe on for, I think the majority of his career outside of the last couple. You know what I mean? He gets it. So I think this is going to be honestly a great game, a one to watch. It's going to be in Indy at at Lucas Oil Stadium, and I like the Colts +7. Your boys, they covered. Personally, I don't think they're going to do it this week. What do you think?
They're going to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this game's in New Jersey, correct?
Uh. Yeah. Well, yeah, because the Browns are playing in
Yeah.
Ford Field. So yeah, it's at yeah.
Yeah, this game's in New Jersey. I think like it's such a weird spot to be in as a Giants fan because really when was the last time like the Giants have actually been good? Like two Super Bowls, they were 8-8, 9-7, whatever.
Yeah, that's the funny part. It's like the records weren't even that good when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so any Giants fan, like, okay, you can take a flyer on it. Like personally, not my cup of tea for them to win the Super Bowl, even at this stage. But I think the Giants have a pretty good chance of putting up 30 points for the first time in 3 seasons against this Lions defense, which I don't think, like some metric, like you look at some metrics, and they're top half in the league, around like 11th and a few metrics, but I don't think they're good against the rush. And as we know, that's the Giants' bread and butter with
Well,
Saquon leading the
Saquon.
charge, Daniel Jones being able to do things with his feet, and kind of really his arm being the third option for a lot of their offensive schemes. So, I mean, like as I said last week, the big concern is that the Giants give up a lot of rushing yards per carry. So like on the props line, you got to look at and see if you could get some good value on the Detroit running backs, do some things with the feet. But really, that's the only way that the Giants don't cover is if they just get decimated in the trenches, give up a lot of rushing yards. Because outside of that, like the Giants are middle of the pack as far as defense across the board. So against Lions team that has been iffy, a little bit banged up as far as like weapons go. They got rid of Hawkinson, so yes, they had homeboy step up the last week and hit Hawkinson's absence. But yeah, I think the Giants get it done here. They're at home and they're riding better momentum than the Lions. Even though the Lions have won 2 games, I kind of expect that to stop here. Giants can cover this field goal.
Yeah, I for some reason I just personally think the Lions are better than the record may give. But I mean, it's just like you don't want to. I'll say this: the Giants don't want to get into an offensive matchup with the Lions. I feel like the Lions' offense can do a lot. They put up a lot of points. You've convinced me. I'll ride with the Giants here. in MetLife. I like it's a 1 p.m. game. I feel like the Giants only get 1 p.m. games, unfortunately. Um, so I know that everybody will be nice and liquored up. It's gonna be snowing, I think, probably, and should be a great game. So yeah, I'll flip. I usually don't, but I'll flip and I'll ride with the Giants, even though I don't even like the Giants all that much. But it's fine. Last one of the night here. This game, I think it's gonna be very interesting. After, dude, that I think the Vikings Bills was an instant classic. You know, Aaron Rodgers and the boys got it done against the Cowboys. You know, on Sunday. I think that. I mean, we all knew. I feel like you and I talked about. There's always a chance Aaron Rodgers was gonna go back to old form at any time, and he did. I think this is an electric matchup. If we're being honest, I'm not sure how to look at this. I know a lot of experts are heavy on Dallas here. Maybe they thought that the Vikings beating the Bills was a fluke, and they're expecting the bias on the Vikings. I don't know. What do you think?
Kirk Duggan's.
Bro,
I mean, they're also so. I mean, he kind of feels like he's giving off a different vibe than he has in the past.
yes, I feel like they didn't used to use. He wasn't that much well liked in Minnesota when he started.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a sense like he didn't deserve like the money he commanded, and then he
Yeah,
would have good season here or there, but followed up with like overall performances that wouldn't necessarily be worth the contract that he was earning on a season to season basis. But I kind of look to like any of the pieces they put around him. Dalvin Cook seems like he's getting healthy. I think he's gotten a lot more confident over the last couple of weeks, and that has kind of been part of the dictation of how their games have ended up. But also, you add in Hawkinson, who's a big weapon. You have Thielen, you have Justin Jefferson. That's pretty fucking solid lineup rolling out there on the offensive end, and their defense is, I think, pretty solid. Where then, okay, so they're at home. Vikings were usually a lot better at home than on the road. This is not a primetime game. We all know how Kirk Cousins does in prime time.
yeah. What is it?
And
A one?
in
Is it
this,
a 1 o'clock? Oh, it's a 4:30. Okay, so he's good. I think
yeah,
he needs to also get that monkey off his back eventually. He can't just suck in prime time forever, or he's ever gonna. Anyway, you keep going.
yeah, but then it's like, what do you make of the Cowboys?
They're still
They're,
good. I think they're still great. Like they still have so many weapons on offense and defense.
yeah, I think they're like their defense kind of is carrying. I don't like the decision making from Dak. I think there's still a lot of rust to be shaken off from him in order to like if this team wants to be make it out of the first round of the playoffs, then he's got to do something to prove it. I think that stink is bigger than Kirk Cousins primetime football stink. And like one eventually one of them's gonna have to like shed that off, or maybe neither of them do. But I think I just have I don't have I have a lack of trust in Dak Prescott right now. Zeke and the rest of the offense can do their thing. The defense is pretty solid, but I think Dak's gonna have some issues. Like he made in the series that I've seen of him recently haven't been like I've seen some questionable decision making. Not like it's also a little bit biased. Like I'm not the biggest fan of his overall, but yeah, I'm on the side of the Vikings here.
Yeah, I think like yeah, it's been pointed out that like did you watch the Packers Cowboys game?
Yeah, I was watching and then was eating dinner towards like the tail end of that, so I missed all the fun part. But
It just seems like the like it's almost like the Cowboys just kind of I wouldn't say handed that game to the Packers, but there was a massive lack of execution on the Cowboys part of that game. And I feel like if they continue to do that, the Vikings are going to eat them up. The Vikings have only lost to the Eagles, who is, by record, the best team in the NFL. So, I mean, and that's on a Monday night in Philadelphia. That is what it is. I think that, if you give the Vikings more shots, the Eagles, I think they can beat them for sure. I think that it's actually kind of shocking that the Vikings are dogs on the spread here. I'm not mad about it from a betting perspective because I'll take a point. You know, I'll take a point any day on a team that I like. So yeah, I'm gonna ride with the Vikings here. They're hot. Their offense, it's. I definitely agree that I don't think that Kirk was well liked when he first went from Washington to Minnesota. He hadn't really proven himself in Washington and wasn't even worth. I don't think he was worth a contract. At least at the beginning, they gave him Minnesota. I think now he's showing why they paid him. And I know the guys who paid him are very happy that he's actually making them not look like buffoons for giving him a bag. Um, you know what I mean? So I think that the Vikings minus. I think the Vikings are going to end up in the NFC Championship. If we're being honest, I think it's early to tell, but I think that
Certainly could happen.
I think that it's not. It's fair to say that we could definitely see them in the NFC Championship game against somebody. I don't know who. Maybe the Eagles. That'd be a great game. But yeah, that's our slate. If you want to we'll run it back real quick. I believe in TCU Baylor, we're both on TCU minus 2.5, right?
Yep.
In this game, we're split. I'm on Minnesota. You're on Iowa, both with the spread. We're both on Ole Miss minus 2. We are both on the over, this crazy number, and we're gonna lean with UCLA plus the points. Nothing official really here. I think we both are gonna lean Browns to cover, but we're not gonna make that an official pick. Probably should sprinkle some props in there. We're both we're both with the Colts plus the points here. Colts plus the points. Am I cutting out again? Can you hear me? All right, I think this is falling apart, but we're on the Colts plus 7. We're both on the Giants minus 3, and we're both on the. Do you hear me now? And the Vikings in the spread. I just want to make sure that everybody gives us a like, drop a comment, and subscribes to us. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at PickinWinners. Check out the website, show love. At pickingwinners.org. And I hope that everybody has a happy, healthy, and safe weekend of gambling. We out.